The Power Moms Network, empowering moms to lift the world.
Welcome. I'm Riley Karsh.
I'm Tova Kopan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast, where we are thrilled to be a part of the Power Moms Network. At Power Moms Network, we are empowering moms and creating a community of mothers mentoring other moms to greatness. It's an uplifting place to be, whether you're a mom or not. We encourage you to check it out. There is a website, there's social media presence, there's all kinds of stuff. So when you have time, have a look, see what you think, and join us over there. It's, like I said, a really fun place to be. So without further ado, it's season 11 still. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest, today. I am struggling with today's episode, and we haven't even started, and I didn't finish reading the outline. So that tells you where my headspace is. We are talking about expectations today, whether they're societal or personal or otherwise. And it's going to be an interesting conversation, I think. But before we dive all the way into that, let me say hello to Tova, welcome her to the show, and see how she's doing today. How are you, Tova? What's going on?
Hey, yes. I'm good. You know, it's hard to not be good in the fall for me because
It is your favorite.
it is. I love the summer in many ways, but many of the ways are because I loved it so much as a kid. And
Yeah, that's so true.
and I think what I realized is I love the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
but I no longer correlate the ocean with the summer.
Yeah,
Like,
I love the ocean in all seasons.
yeah, and especially living in New Jersey where it's like I could go to the ocean. I mean, I don't because I work and kids and
Life.
but like life, but like I could go to the ocean and I love to be at the ocean in the winter and stuff. And so the ocean is like as you said, a year-round thing. But I have I was gifted a Le Creuset pumpkin Dutch oven,
Oh, okay.
and it sits on top of my stove during the fall. And it's really hard to not be like, at least even if like the world is crumbling around you, like a little okay when that's sitting on your stove.
I think, we all have, and we're going to get into the topic in a second, but we all have connections to seasons that last from, childhood through wherever we're at right now. And I think starting to notice those things is a cool kind of self-awareness trick that you can do,
Yeah.
right? Like, why is fall so satisfying, right? And for me, like, why is summer something that I like want to love but don't? Right? Like there's not always a deeper meaning, but oftentimes there's something behind that you can look at and sort of get a better um I don't know, a better sense of self, like a deeper sense of who you are.
Well, and I don't know, like, and listen, I'm talking a little bit about fall because this topic is particularly uh on point for today and what I'm struggling with today. But I love the coziness of soups. And I baked for the first time in a long time this weekend. And I love to bake, but I don't want to bake when it's hot outside. And it was hot outside, but I was just like, no, it's September. I'm baking. um,
Yeah,
but
summer seems to be lasting longer and longer. So
well, I was just
that's
gonna
the
say,
challenge.
like, I equate like peaches and tomatoes to the summer, but I'm taking so many peaches out of my garden, or not peaches, so many tomatoes out of my garden right
Yeah.
now. So it's like, wait, these are summer fruits in my head, but they're apparently fall fruits in my kitchen. So it's just like more to love about fall. So in many respects, I'm stressed, overwhelmed, really busy, in the sense of like actual things to do, but also busy in that like frenetic feeling,
Yep.
in need of more meditation, desperately in need of doing some journaling. I'm going to see if I can get my kids to do some yoga tonight. I think they're feeling the stress of like being back to school now for a couple weeks and being back to like lots of practices. And they're starting to get like those like little injuries, little tweaks that like aren't really injuries that are going to keep them out of games, but and practices, but also like aren't really going to resolve until December when they're not going to practices every day.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this one, I wasn't avoiding doing the research for, but I finished the outline this morning when I was struggling with my own personal expectations that were crashing down upon me. So I did the outline for this one. And there were two things that I wanted to talk about that I put right at the top, like before we dive into like, what is an expectation, which I don't know that we really need to define.
Right.
But we're talking about both society expectations and personal expectations. And Miranda Morris, who I came upon her name a lot. She's a clinical psychologist, and she comes up a lot in the writing about expectations. And she said the biggest unrealistic expectation is that people shouldn't have unrealistic expectations. It's part of the human experience. And I think we should just start like the episode with that.
Yeah. No, I read that. And I love it in the sense that it allows us to recognize that there's a fine line between sort of what's an unrealistic expectation and a goal, right? Or
Yeah.
thriving or any of those words that we sort of look to have as part of our everyday behavior, right? But then sometimes it slips over into these unrealistic expectations we're going to talk about.
And then before we go any further, because as you said, there are good expectations and hopes and goals. And I liked this line, which said, not quoting her, but just a line from an article that said, setting realistic expectations for yourself can improve your life and well-being. It involves setting standards, but being honest about what you can accomplish in a specific time frame. Realistic expectations help you improve your life and make the most out of it. So I think that just understanding that, as you said, that there are expectations that can help you, that are good, and that, that you say, I have certain expectations for what I want my life to look at. And maybe it's an expectation for what you want your day to look at, like, and there are certain expectations for what you want your life to look at, like, and those can be wonderful. But it takes a lot of, and we're going to get into all of this, like checking in with yourself, right? To
Right.
making sure that those expectations are the ones that you set for yourself and that they're also healthy.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's what we're here to talk about.
absolutely. And I also just, in that whole conversation that you sort of just indicated we're going to get to at some point, I want to make sure we're acknowledging that, like, you also have to be aware of your limitations, of your blind spots, of the things that like get in the way of you doing the things you want to be doing. Like, there's some aspects of neurodiversity that will cause challenges in time management, right? Like that exists in my house to it quite a big degree. And so if you are setting expectations as if you did not have that divergence, then then you're setting unrealistic expectations. So there's a lot of nuance, I think, to the conversation that needs to be sort of acknowledged at least and discussed if we can.
Well, and I think I mean, I experienced this just yesterday, when we set expectations for our children, and who are different people. And I did not do this on purpose at all. My middle son wants to make money. He really wants a new skateboard. He had planned to ask for it for his birthday. And when he went online to find out what skateboard he wanted, he realized it was only $25. Now he gets an allowance, but he has no balance ever in his allowance bucket because he spends it immediately on a Fortnite skin. As soon as it comes in, it is gone, right? And so, he might have $6 now, but so really this skateboard though is not that far away.
Yeah.
And in the past, when my older son has wanted to earn money around the house, I have had him, like go through all of the art supply, like big kind of like home organization projects that I have not wanted to do. So things that are beyond the normal, like, no, you don't get paid to take the trash out. You don't get paid to like do normal family contributions. But if there's like projects that have been in the back of my head that I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this, I have given them to him. And many of them are organizational tasks that my oldest thrives at and also finds peace in. Like it's a double whammy for him. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I did not think about the personality of the children when I gave my son this task. And I was like, hey, there's this corner cabinet, and why don't you like clean it out and organize it so we can get in it? Because I have a tendency of cleaning it out, organizing it, and then as time goes on, just like throwing things in it, and eventually it becomes a mess again. And he I don't know, 30 seconds in, 1 minute in, I mean, his face is red. The tears are about to come. He is so overwhelmed by this. He is so upset. And I was like, oh, wait, like I have totally missed the mark on what would be a reasonable task for him. Like, not only is this something that he would, you know, is just, it's just an unrealistic expectation for him.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, that is something that I think we do to ourselves all the time, where we compare ourselves to our sibling or a colleague or a parent or just like the world in general, a friend, or oftentimes more likely a person that we don't know on social media, and think, well, they're doing it, I can do it. And we don't know the help that they're getting, the background information, but we also don't know just the way that their mind is wired and where they have a natural tendency to excel and achieve and the things that they may naturally be good at.
Yeah, or how many years have they spent learning the thing, or how many takes, especially on social media, how many takes happened before they got that one take that looks, quote, perfect.
Yes.
So all of that I think is comparison. We've talked about this on the show before. Comparison is a beast, and it's terrible for us.
And it's an important part though of understanding why there are problems with expectations.
Yeah.
Like, so what are expectations, right? So expectations are what we think will happen, while reality is actually what transpires. And expectations can be put on us by a variety of places, or we can carry them with us. I kind of think of expectations as something that we put in our backpack. I don't know why this season I think of it being a backpack versus a bucket, but I think of expectations be something that we like are carrying with us, that maybe we're carrying because of it's our family. We're carrying with us from society has told us that that's something that we should be doing. Or we're carrying with it because somehow we are comparing ourselves, right? So it's interesting because it can come from society, but then we can internalize it.
Right.
And so suddenly it becomes us saying, well, I should be able to do that.
Yeah. The great news about that, though, I think, is that if it comes from society and then we willingly or not internalize it and turn it into our belief system, right? We can undo that. If it's not something hardwired into us, we can undo it, which is what the season is all about. We can make a change, a challenging, hard to accomplish change, but we can change that thought process.
Yeah. And honestly, this is not to jump to the end, but like the homework for this time and the articles that talked about like what to do were some of my favorite, because some of the expectations we put on ourselves are so absurd. Like, and honestly, now I did not laugh at my sweet boy 10-year-old who was red in the face and ready to cry. But when it clicked in my head that I had given him this task, the absurdity of it, like in my head was like, oh my God, like, what was I thinking? Like, he doesn't shut his drawers. Why would I think that organizing a cupboard would be a good idea for him? Like,
well, it might be my fault. Didn't I suggest that you do that? Because that's what my kid does. And
no, it was before that though.
Okay.
Like
okay.
It was, but then I talked to a friend who does have a similar personality to him. And I said, how did you make money? And he was like, oh, I just kept starting small businesses. I would just run little businesses. So I said to him afterwards, I said, hey, what about you starting a business? Maybe you could design something. Like, let's brainstorm. Like, tonight is a night we don't have practices, and he and I are going to brainstorm some ideas. Like, and we're going to talk about what people need, what he's good at. Like, and he got so excited by that. And I was like, yay. But like, it was so absurd. And my point is that when we get to the homework, but when we talk about how to kind of break through these expectations, some of the expectations we put on ourselves, if you can take enough steps back to look at them from an outside perspective, they are ridiculous. And I mean, even today, I missed the sign up for class parent for my third grader, and I am ready to cry. Like, I'm still ready to cry. Like, I'm so disappointed in myself that I missed sign up for class parent. And it came in an email, and it came on the Facebook page, and it came across when I had COVID. And with those kinds of things, I know if I don't do it right away, I'm not going to do it. And I just did not have it in me to fill out a form, even though the form is basically like, what's your name? What's your kid's name? What class are they in? But I was just like, I didn't even open the form. And I missed it. And I'm really upset because I really wanted to be his class parent. And I haven't been his class parent yet for a year. And I was his brother's class parents for a year. And I was texting a friend, and I said, the thing is, and thank God we're doing this episode, but like, I want to be a mom that doesn't have multiple jobs, that has like a co-parent that lives in the house, that's super involved, that has other family around, and that like acts like she doesn't have multiple kids. Like, that's the kind of mom I want to be for every single child. And that is insane. That's absurd. Like, that expectation is absolutely ridiculous. And I can blame society, because that's kind of what they tell, women are supposed to work like they don't have kids, and parent kids like they don't work. And, but it's also coming from here. It's coming from inside. But when you get far enough out, and I typed that out, it's totally absurd. And frankly, that's the way a lot of these expectations that we put on ourselves are.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to take a break. So why don't we do that? And when we come back, let's talk about what kind of consequences there are from having these sorts of unrealistic expectations on ourselves and in our lives. So we will be right back after the break, everyone. Well, hey there, dream chaser. Are you ready to make the next 12 months of your life unforgettable? Introducing the Year of You, a groundbreaking new goal system group that's about to redefine the way we approach personal growth. Join us with a community of like-minded individuals committed to unlocking their full potential. With expert guidance, personalized strategies, kind-hearted accountability, and a supportive network, the Year of You is more than just a goal-setting group. It's a whole movement. Don't just dream about it, achieve it. Click in the link in our show notes, or go ahead and visit us at goboldlyinitiative.com/Year of You to learn more today. Let's embark on a transformative journey together towards becoming the best versions we can be. The Year of You, where your goals become reality. All right, so welcome back to the show. Before the break, we were about to start talking about what happens to you when you set these unrealistic expectations, which, of course, by their very own nature, you cannot meet because they are unrealistic. Or if you do meet them, then suddenly you're setting like extra unrealistic expectations, or you're missing other things because you can't possibly do everything all at once. Because you're human. And so what happens? And I was reading through this part of the outline, and I think, there's a list, of course, and it includes burnout, emotional distress, dissatisfaction, fear of failure and avoidance, low self-esteem and self-worth, relationship strain, stress. Obviously, these are all like not things that we're not part of our goals for our limitless lives. But I think it's important to recognize what specifically it does to you, right? Not just like globally, it's like reading out the possible side effects of a medication on TV, right? Like, yeah, all these things could happen. But what happens for you when you set unreasonable expectations and you don't meet them, right? For me, like I feel quite a bit of dissatisfaction when I don't meet them and discontent and things like that. Like I've recognized it and I start to think about where do I feel it in my body? How does it impact my day to day? So those are the kinds of questions that I think we all need to be asking ourselves when we're thinking about, okay, I probably set unrealistic expectations because again, I'm a human being living in the world that I live in. Um, what happens when I do that, right? Like, not just how do I undo setting those expectations, how do I undo the consequences of setting those expectations? So I think it's sort of a rabbit hole that you can fall down, but it's also like, I don't know, I think maybe it's when you should fall down of just kind of chasing the concept of what's happening when when you say I want a parent, like I have all the help in the world and everything's perfect in my life, because even then you're going to
Right.
fail, right? And
Yeah.
you're going to not show up for your kids when you mean to, and you're going to make mistakes and things are going to go wrong. So what does it do to you? Where do you feel it? How does it impact your existence, and what can you do to both alleviate some of that and change the way you're setting your expectations?
Well, and I think, and I don't know if I included this, but there was some interesting articles and they were, I don't know if they were articles or sort of like opinion piece discussion blog posts, which may have been why I didn't include them, but there were some interesting commentary on, you know, there's nothing wrong with average. Like, and it's not settling to be happy where you are. Like, and there is this myth that we always need to be the best and we always need to be continually reaching for something. And if you're not continually striving for more and to be the best and to always be the doing the most and going for the most, that you are somehow failing and you are somehow not living up to what you could be living up to. And unfortunately, what it often means is people that are happy or could be happy exactly where they are not allowing themselves to be happy because they are so focused on, well, I should be doing something else, right? There's a lot of shoulds that enter the world of expectations, right? And I thought that that was an interesting conversation that they were having. Like, it's not just that you're pushing yourselves to achieve something and to that may lead to burnout and all of this exhaustion and anxiety and I mean studies show that it can lead to anxiety and depression and all of these things, but
Right.
it also may lead you down a path away from where you actually were happy. Like, you were happy somewhere and this is leading you farther away.
Yeah. And I think we see that a lot when people sort of chase things that like on, whether it's fame or, being the next great thing on social media or whatever, you see people realizing, oh, wait, I didn't really like this isn't what I thought it would be. And it's a good reminder that you put it here, but if you're setting an expectation, you have to actually want the thing that you're expecting yourself to do in
Yes.
order for it to be worth your energy and your time. I struggle with expectations in so many ways. I feel good about the way I've set expectations for my parenting most of the time, certainly not all the time, because at some point after having my daughter, I realized I was going to set goals around how I wanted her to feel, not around what I wanted to give her or do for her or create for her. I wanted to create a feeling, one that I didn't feel growing up, and I wanted her to have it. And so that's sort of been my way of parenting through the expectations. Now, listen, I mess up all the time and I set these expectations sometimes where I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, nobody's going to meet that. I can't
Yeah.
possibly be that person. Um, And then I recenter myself back to, okay, what's the feeling I'm trying to create for these kids as they grow up, right? Safety, love, acceptance, all those kinds of things, right? Those are the goals. Like whether it's through, showing up at events or through creating a home life that is consistent and safe for them. Those are the things that's where my expectations really live. And when I find myself feeling like, I should be at this thing and that thing, and I should be at every game they've ever had and every practice they have and all those things. I can't. It's mostly just me and them because of my circumstances, and I can't be everywhere. So I create space for them in the best way that I can, and I'm not gonna like beat myself up for it because they're fine, they're happy, they're healthy, they're mostly well-adjusted kids. And I think it's important for us to start thinking about, and I'm just going to go back to what I said before and what you wrote here. The expectation has to be something you actually want, right? It has to be something that you want to create in the world. It can't just be like, I want a fancy car because my neighbor has a fancy car. And if I just keep getting promotions in this job where I don't really want to be, then I'll get that fancy car, right? Like that's not going to lead to happiness and contentment in your life, whatever those things mean.
Yeah, and expectations and wherever they come from can ruin a good thing and a good feeling really fast. And I'm as you were talking, I'm laughing and thinking about, what feelings I want for my kids. So yesterday, the third grader came home with a adorable little thing that was like, "Who is your hero?" Because they were talking about September 11th. And he wrote, "My hero is my mom." Because, I make him dinner and I provide him shelter, which, basically I am doing the bare minimum of momming. And for that,
which you're not, but
no, but I mean, I love that that's
yeah.
what he wrote.
Yeah.
And that for that, I am his hero. But it is amazing. And I guess that's the whole point of this. It is amazing how quickly unrealistic expectations can undercut like genuine good things, right? Like you have a genuine good, you're doing good things and you're doing what you want to be doing and you're achieving what you want to be achieving. But there is somewhere this unrealistic expectation that's still hanging around. And because of it, me in this case, is feeling less than. And it's like totally ridiculous. Because I actually had like so rarely do we get proof from our kids that like we're doing a good job.
Almost never, right?
And I literally, and he was so excited to give it to me yesterday after school. He was so excited. I have proof like of good work as a parent. You don't get that.
No.
And
I that's amazing. And such a good illustration of what we're talking about. I think that it is so easy to get sidetracked by what you think you ought to be doing versus what is in your heart to be doing, right? I just think that that's really the distinction. It's what is on your heart. What do you really deeply want out of this life? And it's not just setting expectations for your kids or your parenting or things like that. It's also, in your work, in your friendships, in your other relationships, in your expectations of yourself for who you are as a human being, right? Like if you think, if you're a perfectionist or a recovering perfectionist like myself, if you think making a mistake makes you unworthy, right? Then those expectations don't make any sense. And you're torturing yourself with those sorts. I mean, I feel like it's actual torture to like have those thoughts in your head all the time of just beating yourself up for making mistakes or falling down or just not being the person you think you quote ought to be. So, it just gets super uncomfortable.
Well, and I liked this list of how do you know if you have set unrealistic expectations? Like, I think this is kind of an interesting, and you talked about like when you have a feeling and and like I said, I really, and we're going to talk about more, but I really liked, the, that whole like, and it's going to be part of the homework of like stepping back and just anytime you feel any expectation, like writing it down and being like, oh, because most of them are just absurd. Like,
Yeah.
generally, we're not commenting on our lives when it's neutral. Like, when it's like, well, that was nice tea. You made a good cup of tea. Like,
I
there's
mean, listen, there are days where I'm like, man, that's a good pot of coffee I made this morning.
Yes. But generally,
yes.
like when you have status quo, you're just like
Yeah.
status quo. And so, when you're you can kind of pull out expectations that way of like, well, that was just absurd. But I really like this kind of list of, and I like this because these, what's interesting is these unrealistic expectations can be things that you have been carrying with you for 30 years. And yet they show up every single day in these like little tiny like bits. Like, that's not like the best way to describe them, but like these little.
No, but they show up in moments, right? It doesn't have to be your entire day. It might just be a moment,
like,
and that might affect your entire day, but it's like a moment, a blip that happens, and somehow you get sucked into it like a black hole, right?
Yeah. And it's like you feel stressed and upset when things don't go as planned or your routine deviates slightly. Like, and or you find, and it's not going to necessarily be everything that this is, for you, but
yeah, I mean, some of these could also indicate some other things going on, but yes.
Yeah, you find plenty to criticize in yourself and others, for sure. I also think I just want to highlight, if you find yourself criticizing others about things, and we talked a little bit about this with the inner child episode, but it's always important to indicate why something in someone else bothers you. Because not that we want to do like too much self-reflection. Haha. No, really, we always want to do self-reflection. But like, and it might be an indicator like, hey, why do I feel the need to criticize them about that? Because there's probably something going on internally.
Right.
You fixate on small details and find it very important to get everything right. Whew. When things go wrong, even in minor ways, you feel let down and frustrated. You have very specific visions and find it difficult to accept other possible outcomes. When others don't fall in line with your plans, you feel irritated and resentful. And, it could be like a little plan, but it could also be like a greater, larger plan, right? Like it could be like, but I needed this to happen so that this could happen, and then this could happen, and then this could happen. And you might not even know why you needed that first like piece to go down to happen. Like, and it's not until you sit down and be like, why am I so disproportionately upset about this?
Yeah.
And then you take a step back and realize, oh, well, this is the picture that I had, or this is that I thought was a necessary step in this goal that I was trying to achieve. It goes a lot to, and this has kind of been a theme in a lot of what we've talked about this season, these stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. It goes back to this idea of the story that we've been telling ourselves for so long. And as you've probably picked up, these are stories that, we want to write a different story, or we can write a different story. We can undo these stories, unravel these stories, and tell ourselves something different.
Yeah, I think honestly, I keep thinking about it because it's come up in all of our interviews that we've done, all of our conversations, really, as you just said, Tova, have come back to this concept of what is the story you're telling yourself about who you are, how you fit in the world, how you want to be, what is the story you've written? And is it accurate? Is it a work of fiction? Is it like what you want it to be? And, I think at the heart of all this undoing and unbecoming, we're really talking about rewriting your story so that it's honest, flaws and all, shortcomings, successes, whatever they are, and being able to accept who you are as good enough, as worthy, as, someone who deserves to live a happy, contented life, right? Whether you're, quote, a perfect parent or not, which you're not, by the way. Nothing like a second child to teach you that. Uh, but, just understanding that you don't have to be or do anything to be worthwhile, to be able to determine your own story, to decide your own story. And that doesn't disregard the fact that, we all come from different places. We all start with different advantages and disadvantages and things of that nature. You still are in charge of the story you tell about yourself, right? The one that you write about who you are and who you want to be. And I think it's just essential that we start getting down to that sort of level of deciding, I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to be myself, and I'm not going to worry about what Sally or Sarah, or I don't know why they're all S names, what the moms on the soccer field are doing with their lives. And I don't know. I just think it's obviously something that's important to me because I'm thinking about it so much, but I hope it's important to all of you listening, because I think it can be life-changing.
Yeah. So I read a book this weekend, and I bought a book in a panic last week because I thought my book club was this week and I didn't think it would get off the list in time. This is where my frenetic state has been over the last couple of weeks. My book club is actually next week, but I bought it and I read it, and it was actually really good. And I read it in a weekend. And honestly, it is always a good check for my mental health to see if I can focus and read a book. So I was actually really happy that I did focus and read a book. So that was a good check-in. But I took a picture of this section, and I was going to have a separate conversation with you, Barley, about it, but I'm going to bring it up right now because I really liked it. And they're having a conversation, and the younger woman says to her mom that when I grow up, I want to be you. And the mom says, "Oh God, no, just be you, the best you, and the most you."
Yeah.
And I was like, that has been what we have always, sometimes, because we never want to be like, be the best version of yourself, or the
right.
Be better, or like, and it's like, no, it's the most you. That's what we want to capture is, and that means figuring out which ones of the expectations are healthy, that are actually helping you achieve that most you. Because there are, as we said, right. And that was why I really wanted to read the section. It's like, sometimes expectations are healthy and they help you achieve these goals. They help you be the most you. I think the most me lives near a body of water, frankly.
Absolutely. No, but you're right. The expectations can, you can't function without expectations, right?
Yeah.
They put structure in a day. They put and everyone, you have to have some level of structure, or it's just chaos and anarchy, right? Like, you have to.
I mean, listen, my son yesterday went to an assembly for high honor roll, and there's an expectation that he puts on himself that he'll achieve high honor roll. And do I think it's sort of ridiculous for him? Yes, I do. Do I think it's ridiculous for other kids who really work hard for it? No, I do not. And I think it's great. And I think it's wonderful that they work hard for it. He doesn't have to. That being said, at the end of the year, there were some classes that were, a little weird. And he did kind of, I guess, buckle down, sort of. And part of it was because he wanted to make sure he got high honor roll. So maybe it did serve a good purpose. I don't know. I don't really actually think it just served an anxiety driven purpose. But, but for other kids, where the work was actually like a healthy work, maybe. So, but that's the whole point, right? We have to check in to see, like, is this a healthy expectation?
Yeah.
Is this, and so I think that's a good example too of, like, the goal can be exactly the same. Somebody else could get an MBA and it is an incredibly healthy goal for them because they want to use it and they want to do something that they really are excited about and they love. Yeah. And you can maybe be getting your MBA because everybody else in your family gets their MBA and you want to be a librarian. Like, cool. Maybe there's a need for MBAs in the library world. Maybe, I don't know, but like, probably not. I don't know. But like, the point is that, this doesn't even have to do with what the goal is of your expectation, but you need to make it fit you.
Yeah. We need to take another break. So why don't we do that? When we come back, we'll talk about how we deal with unrealistic expectations and close out with some tips for setting expectations. So we will be right back after this break, everyone.
Hey, pod friends, it's us again. Looking for a place to collaborate, an opportunity to share your knowledge? Have you been working so hard on a podcast, book, course, product, or retreat? Do you have insights that could light up our podcast? Well, we want to hear from you. We would love to support you in all that you are and do. Join us at Go Boldly Initiative, where we celebrate diverse perspectives and share the wisdom of our incredible community. Whether you're an expert, a hobbyist, or simply love learning, we invite you to reach out with your ideas. Visit our website at goboldlyinitiative.com/podcast guests to pitch the show or shoot us an email at hello@goboldlyinitiative.com to talk all things collaboration, advertising, and affiliation opportunities. Become part of our growing family. Let's make learning an adventure together.
Okay, so welcome back to the show. Before the break, I mentioned that we're going to sort of wrap this up with talking about how we deal with unrealistic expectations. We've touched on this already quite a bit, but I think you have some great tips here. And then also talk about how we set expectations in a healthy way. So some of the things here, I think, we get a little repetitive on the show, but that's because these tips work, right? Like the tools that we're talking about actually do what we say they do. And so we just keep repeating them in the hopes that we will do them. And then you also will do them. The first thing you have here on how you deal with unrealistic expectations is self-reflection and awareness, right? This is what we've been talking about all along. This is that noticing. If you haven't figured out your inner voice yet, this might be kind of hard. So I would suggest, you take our free email course and learn to hear your inner voice. But aside from that, being able to sort of notice and become aware of the expectations you're setting on a daily basis is sort of step one, I think, in the whole process. Because if you're not even seeing them, I don't know how you do any of the other things. That being said, I also like the second thing you have on your list, which is progress, not perfection, right? Like you're not going to notice every single thing. I don't. And I've been doing this. I did it with a therapist for years, and I've been doing it on my own for even more years. And so if you're just doing it for the first time, it's going to be hard, right? And that's okay. But you got to start somewhere, and it's worth the effort of starting. And then I think maybe most importantly, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Tova, but maybe most importantly, you've written here, compassion and acceptance. And this is a topic that keeps coming up throughout, well, everything we talk about, but certainly through the unbecoming discussion, because you cannot look at these parts of yourself and your life and what's happened to you and around you and for you and kind of deal with all of it without having compassion for yourself, without being able to accept who you are, flaws and all, beautiful parts, whatever it is. You have to be kind to yourself. It won't work otherwise, because you're just going to cycle through that beating yourself up process.
Yeah. And we haven't talked about that a lot in this episode, because we've talked about it a lot, but I think in this whole season, it's kind of the magic elixir, for lack of a better word, that is necessary, that we have to have. You truly have to have compassion and kindness when you're doing this. Back to my backpack example. If you've been carrying all of this in your backpack, whether it's you have a inner child in there and you have, other stuff that we've been talking about, and you have your society's expectations and parents' expectations and some of your own expectations thrown in there, and you're carrying them in this backpack along with everything else that we've talked about and we're going to be talking about, and your backpack is heavy and it is weighing you down. As you take things out, it's not going to feel any lighter right away. Your shoulders are sore. It's still going to feel really, really heavy. And it is going to take a while until you probably notice. Have you ever, you carry those heavy backpacks, it's still your neck and your shoulders, they feel tight for a long time before they even realize that you're not carrying the backpack anymore. It takes maybe a massage. It takes time for you to even realize, and for you to, I think, relax those muscles, to relax and to realize that you're not going to put that heavy backpack back on again. Like
Yeah.
you really, I think your body and your mind is going to be like, wait, is she going to do that to us again? Are those expectations coming back? Is that mean voice coming back? Because it was here for decades. So I think compassion is so important as you're going through this process.
Yeah. Well,
This whole season.
and self-care, right? Like when you
Yeah.
put the backpack down, or I think about it like you're carrying two buckets,
Yeah.
and when you start taking things out, you're off balance. It feels weird. But like you're saying, I think self-care really comes into play, which is obviously a part of compassion, right? Like you're
Yes.
talking massages and relaxing and whatever it is you need to like release that physical tension.
Or meditation or standing in grass. Like, I mean, there's so many things. A massage was like kind of if it's a literal backpack, but also if it's a physical backpack. I mean, if it's a figurative backpack.
Mental backpack. Yeah.
This is always a good example. Another technique is always good, but doesn't hurt to be said again, which is using the double standard technique. Like, what would you say to a loved one in the same situation? And I would actually encourage not just like, hey, what would you say? But also like say it to someone else, like share your expectations. Like it was very helpful for me today to tell someone, and now all of you, like I had this expectation that I should be doing this. Like,
yeah,
I should be able to handle all of these things. I also shared to Riley before this started and another friend that like, I really thought cancer would make me wiser. Like I thought I would have all these aha moments. And Riley was nice enough to be able to tell me that I was already wise. And my other friend just sent me back kind of a comment like an owl, like 1 licks, 2 licks, kind of, how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? And to be perfectly honest, I was more thinking of the owl from Winnie the Pooh. So, right. But the point is like, when you have friends that you can share these expectations with, you realize both, yes, how strong they are, but also how foolish they are. Like,
yeah.
What?
Well, I mean, we haven't talked about this. It's sort of implied, but, along with not meeting unrealistic expectations comes a huge dose of shame. Yeah. And I think the only way to deal with shame is to say it out loud and name it, right? And to address it directly and say, this is what I did. Can you believe it? And have somebody who can respond to you in a helpful way, right? To help you work through that so you can let go of whatever shame you might be feeling, which you haven't earned. There's no shame in not meeting, unrealistic expectations, but you still feel it. You still have it. And it's so miserable to feel ashamed of your behavior especially when you haven't even done anything wrong, right?
Well, and I mean, I always want to say hi to Brene Brown whenever we talk about shame.
Yeah, of course, that's what I'm thinking about.
Hey, yeah. Brene, how's it going? But like whenever she talks about shame, none of the shame is earned. Like,
yeah, that's true.
None of it is, guilt. Sometimes you do something wrong, legitimately wrong. You speak unkindly to somebody, or you let somebody down and you feel guilt.
I mean, I think there are some things that are shameful, but yes.
Well, yeah, but we're not talking about like,
I know, I just needed to say it.
I don't know, some presidential candidates here. Like we're talking about like, not the kind of shame we're talking about is not the kind of shame that is earned.
Obviously. Yes.
But like, but I'm sure that there are listeners and podcast hosts who are talking that have said some things that have been unkind or done some things that we feel guilty about because it's earned, and we apologize or we just feel guilt for the rest of our lives, one of the two.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. No, just live as honest as you can.
That's funny.
And, but the shame is often the way I think about it. And I don't know there's some saying about something only can exist in the dark, but I don't remember what it is.
And I think it's shame.
Is it shame? Only lives
in the dark. I don't know.
I don't know.
Fear? There's something.
I don't know. But something. But maybe it's
terrible
shame.
With sayings.
Oh
we are not good at them.
But anyway, when you bring it out in the open, also I love to be like, in the movies, this is and I think that also, we say so society so often. Well, society says this and society says that. Well, let's be honest. A lot of the times it's like, well, on TV, this is what happens.
But that's such a huge part of culture now, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's TV, social media,
it's not
music,
diminishing
whatever.
it, but it's recognizing like when somebody writes a script and people are well, have makeup people, this is the way they look when they do these things. It's like, oh, so I shouldn't maybe compare myself to that. Okay.
Right.
Cool. Now that I've said it out loud, now it makes more sense. Yeah, I do. I like when you're looking at your expectations, you've pulled them out and you say, does this help me with who I want to be or where I want to go? I like this question. Is it in service of what I care about? I like you talked about having that feeling that you want to give your kids.
Yeah.
But I think that though these are great questions, like, does this help that feeling that I'm trying to give my children, or is this in service of that feeling? The in service of one really speaks to me for whatever reason. So pick whichever question is helpful, or many questions, but I think asking like, does this expectation help me with who I want to be, is a really important question to ask. And you can also ask, I think it's really important to ask, like, does this actually help me like get it there? And then if I let go of this expectation, am I suddenly not performing well? Like, if I'm not class parent, am I suddenly not a good mom to my child?
Right.
Obviously,
yeah,
not.
No, I think that's such a good sort of litmus test, right?
Yeah.
Because the answer is clear, right? And even when you are so like attached to that expectation, you can still say it and see, oh, wait a minute. Like I'm like beating myself up over something that is very minor and ultimately won't change who I am and how I am as a parent. I think that's such a great way to look at it.
I do feel like in this one, more than anything else, you have to lean into the foolishness of this.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds, I don't know what it sounds like, but there's a level of foolishness that goes into some of these expectations. And you just have to be willing to say, like, oh, well, that, like, obviously not being class parent does not affect whether I'm a good parent or not.
Right.
Like, does it affect whether I get to be in the classroom for the Halloween party? Yes. It may actually diminish my ability to be a good parent because I'm going to be spending the week leading up to Halloween making sure things come in from that trading post place where we all order the little tchotchkes. Like, it does not affect my parenting ability at all. And the fact that I have somehow correlated it is foolish.
I don't know. Yes, I understand. I like use whatever words work.
I mean,
for you.
foolish, it may not be the correct word, but like this, like it's silly. And I don't mean, I'm not diminishing my feelings. I'm just like, there's like an absurdity to sometimes these expectations and how we've connected them to things. And you're like,
right.
Well, now that I said it out loud.
Yeah. And I think absurdity is the word that resonates with me, because there are so many absurd expectations we put on ourselves. I have a torn ACL, meniscus, and potentially MCL in my right knee. And this morning I went for a walk and I could only do 2 miles, not 3 miles. And I walked back the last half mile being like, I can't believe I couldn't do more of that. I honestly, like, I mean,
I'm a little disappointed in you, to be honest.
Yeah, it's shameful. But when I look at it, and as I was like listening to an audiobook of Brene Brown beating myself up, I was like, well, this is ridiculous, right?
The gifts of imperfection.
Oh yeah. Timely. You have to, like you said, you have to look at it and be able, I don't know, we've said this, laughing at yourself is so healthy, right? Like, you have to be able to laugh at yourself and be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did this to myself again. How silly. Reset, right? Like, it's a reset switch. Some expectations, it's much harder to do that with, right? Like,
yes,
we haven't really gotten into the harder expectations, I think, in the sense of like feelings about your body, especially for us women, but men too. My 7-year-old is already talking about 6-packs because stupid YouTube. And other expectations, like, am I making enough money? Is my job, quote, high profile enough? Am I doing something that is purposeful enough? I don't know. I was listening to Brene Brown this morning, as I said, and she was talking about this a little bit and talking about I forget how she said it, which is annoying because it was really good, but it was about you know, actually actually serving your own purpose, like serving a purpose
Yeah.
that actually means something to you. Not just like, am I doing good in the world for the sake of doing good in the world? Am I doing good in the world and I have a passion for the thing I'm doing, right? Like it's an and sentence, not a
Yeah.
and or.
Yeah. One thing that I think is important to highlight, and we need to wrap up, and
Yeah.
we need to maybe talk some really quickly about some tips for setting
Yeah.
self expectations, is to be flexible. Like it, there are, as we said, there are some expectations that are going to be good. The body image one, that's a whole conversation. It's
Yeah, but
8
it's a big
conversations.
that's
It's
a
100 conversations.
huge part of expectations for people.
It is. And we didn't intentionally avoid it. I think we just have enough expectations that we were all personally dealing with that we were talking about.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that is a conversation that there's a lot of undoing that has to be had as it relates to what we put on our bodies.
Yeah, worth
And
in the body, right?
yeah. And so maybe that's a conversation that we'll have to continue to have. But like I said, I think one thing is that we need to be flexible with our expectations and how we talk to ourselves, and the expectations that we set and the expectations that we let into us. Like we are letting the outside world tell us what is expected of us, and we are believing it. And I think the thing is that we get to decide, and this is leading us into tips for setting these self expectations, but like we get to decide what our expectations are for ourselves. And so we can be empowered by that. And I think it's really important.
Yeah. Um, all right. So how do you set appropriate, I don't know, healthy self expectations? Being realistic, obviously, is I think the key to it all. However, it's pretty hard to know if you're being realistic if you've spent, a lifetime setting unrealistic expectations. You tend to believe that those are realistic, which is the problem. Um, so I think I'm just scrolling through your list here. I really feel like practicing this positive self-talk is pretty essential for me.
Mhm.
Like I was talking about this morning, I had to notice that I was beating myself up over something absurd and change the voice in my head to something that was healthy. And that was just that's really positive psychology. It's just flipping the words you're using so that you're not saying, something negative about yourself, you're saying something positive, and it's not all like silver linings and stuff. It's really just being like loving and compassionate towards yourself.
Yeah. And I think that focusing on, and these kind of all go much of this goes hand in hand. So I'm going to kind of like
Yeah.
bundle it, but like focusing on what you've already accomplished, appreciating what you have, and building internal confidence. Like really focusing on your internal value and your internal self-worth, and things that you've already achieved as you're setting these expectations going forward, I think are incredibly important, because hopefully they will help you have realistic expectations, but they'll also lean into helping you set those use positive words that you're speaking. And I think that's what's going to help. Like, look at what you've already achieved.
Yeah.
Look at what you've already done. Look at what you can do. And, I think that building confidence, a lot of this has to do with figuring out, and this is like such a lengthy conversation, but like figuring out what works for you. And as you said at the very beginning, depending on how your brain works, you might need to figure out a different way to do something.
Yeah.
And maybe the first step of setting expectations is figuring out how your brain works. And now you've figured it out. And so guess what? All these things that you didn't think you'd ever be able to do before, like have a routine. Now your routine isn't going to look like everybody else's routine, but you can actually have your routine. You just have to figure out if you need to anchor habits to something else, or like whatever it's going to look like, you can do it. And so I think that, appreciating what you've already done and figuring out like how to continue to build up your own personal confidence is how you're able to set these healthy expectations for yourself.
Yeah. And just on a final note, and then I'll turn it over to you for homework. But I think when you start to when you're setting expectations, you can ask those questions Tova talked about back when we were talking about how to notice unrealistic expectations. You can ask those questions up front, right? Like if you're like setting an expectation that like this morning, if I had been like, I'm going to walk 3 miles and it has to be 3 miles, I could ask myself, well, does this expectation that I'm going to walk specifically 3 miles help me get where I want to go? Or is it really that I just want to walk and move my body and do what it can do? Right. So you can ask those questions up front and it'll help you set expectations that make sense for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great way to get used to using those get used to, and guess what your homework is, but get used to using those questions, because those questions are great questions to ask when you're confronted with a old flame of an expectation and when you're like hoping to set new ones.
Yeah.
Right?
Or if you notice somebody trying to put an expectation on you.
Right.
Great time to use those.
Right. And also, and this is something that I think about a lot, like I verbalize a lot more with my kids. Like I'll be, and this would be something to say to my kids. Like if my kids are like, well, why don't you do this? And listen, I didn't remember to sign up for class parent, and that's on me. But if my third grader says, well, why aren't you class parent? I could say, well, like, this year I really want to be able to focus on you guys at home and doing blah, 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 blah. And that's my goal this year. And being class parent isn't going to help me reach that goal this year, and right. It's not totally true. I mean, that is a goal of mine, but like, I also forgot to fill out the form, but like, but you can also, I have told the kids when we talk about like, things that they want to spend money on, I'll say, listen, our focus with our budget this year is going on this vacation. So we're not spending money on X, Y, and Z. And the expectation, the goal in this case would be like this vacation. And so I think that, these are conversations that you can have with your kids and say, no, we're not doing that because this is what we want to do as a family, and resetting expectations. So homework, as if we haven't been talking about it the entire time. So consider keeping a list this week of any realistic expectation you stumble upon. So, any expectation you come across, don't judge it first to see if it's unrealistic. Just if you notice yourself putting an expectation down, have a notebook nearby and jot it down. And if you can't do any analysis right away, just jot it down and then go back to it later in the day. But, instead of beating yourself up right away, when you notice it, make a little game, right? And reflect on it and say like, okay, what was going on there? And these are the questions that we'd love you to ask yourself. So does this expectation help me be who I want to be? Does it help me go where I want to go? Is it in service of what I care about, such as a good relationship, safety, or a professional or academic goal, or something else that you want, right? Like, is it helping me achieve that feeling I want my kids to have? Or maybe there's something else that you're trying to achieve. Like, is it achieving this goal? And if it's not, maybe consider letting it go. That may be for next week. But this week is really just determining whether these expectations that you notice are popping in on you. And these could be little expectations, like I should always have a clean house. This has to be done by this time. This needs to be perfect. Or they could be bigger expectations, although I would say those are kind of big expectations. Anyway. And then let us know how you're doing. So tag us on social media at Go Boldly Together. And yeah, let us know what's going on.
Absolutely. So I guess that's it for this week. Very minor conversation around expectations. We will be back next week with another episode for season 11. Let us know how it goes this week. I know this is a tough conversation and a tough sort of thing to start wrapping your mind around, but we want to hear from you. We want to know how you're doing. And so good luck with all of that this week. And we will be back next week, everyone.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.
The Power Moms Network, empowering moms to lift the world.